Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last podcast of 2023. And I told you last month that I was going to come up with something, because something really fun to talk about. And here we are talking about long-term care and long-term care planning. So I think that's exciting. That's pretty funny. I'm sure some of you are like, "Oh, she's got a weird sense of humor." But as we wrap up this year, I can't help but think I should probably introduce myself. Angie Hughes with Producers XL, and you're listening to the Long Term, my monthly podcast. And as we round out this year, we've just celebrated Thanksgiving. Now we're getting ready. We've celebrated Christmas. And what I find interesting is when you talk to long-term care insurance companies, they tell you that those major holidays, when families are all getting together and they're celebrating, the conversation comes up about not really about claims, but about, oh, hey, we probably should have a conversation about mom. Seems like she's not doing as well. Or, hey, we should talk about dad. I think we need to get some care. Those types of things. So I am really excited to introduce my guest this month as John Thomas, and he is with Amada Senior Care. John, thank you very much for joining me.
Good morning, Angie. I am so thrilled and honored to join you today and to join you on the last podcast of the year of 2023. It's a great honor, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Saving the best for last, John. That's exactly what I'm doing. Well, I have to tell you, I want to first let you know that we have partnered with Amada Senior Care, and inside of the Producers XL website, which is just simply www.producersxl.com, inside of the LTC toolbox, you are going to see a landing page. And that landing page is going to have information about Amada Senior Care. And I told John before this that I really want this conversation to go in about as many different directions as we can take it, because they are an incredible resource. I mean, how many times have you guys said to me on phone calls, hey, give this girl a call in Kansas. She can help you. I'm retired. She knows long-term care. She can help you with the claim. I could not be more tickled to share with you all. This isn't a paid promotion. Nobody's getting kickbacks on this. Amada Senior Care actually offers assistance, what I will call concierge service, to people with and without long-term care insurance. John, I want to give you some time to talk about Amada and what you guys do and where you're located in the country.
Yeah, no, thank you, Angie. And you're absolutely right. It is an incredible resource that we offer through Amada. And I say that as somebody that's new to Amada. We've known each other for a number of years, and we knew each other as I was a long-term care insurance wholesaler and worked with a couple of different insurance carriers over the last decade or so. And I was so impressed with the services and the approach that Amada takes to caregiving, that I joined Amada Senior Care this year. So it's been an incredible journey for me, understanding, really what it looks like as we talk about, and I've sold long-term care insurance over the last decade, but seeing what long-term care insurance is and the promise that it represents, and seeing that turn into care in the home. It's been an incredible learning opportunity for me, and I'm just been thrilled to participate in providing care alongside our caregivers in the home. So Amada Senior Care is a non-medical home care provider. And I say non-medical home care provider. We have in-home caregivers across the country, and we provide the kind of care that long-term care insurance pays for, right? It's care for activities of daily living. So, helping folks with their bathing and dressing, and mobility, but it's also the IADLs, making sure that they have meals prepared and that they're eating well, and helping with medication management, and being present for folks that have cognitive issues and Alzheimer's and dementia and may wander or are at a risk for falls or a danger to themselves, right? We provide companionship and presence in the home to make sure seniors are safe. And so we provide caregiving services across the country. We're in roughly 47 states now, and we've got about 170 locations across the country providing in-home caregivers.
I love this, John. And I have to tell you, your experience on the carrier side, on the selling side, my experience in the wholesale side, there is such a need for this and this type of service. And you and I had a conversation beforehand, so when you think of a family in need, right? All of a sudden somebody's needing care.
Hmm.
Somebody has to coordinate, someone's got to take the direction to coordinate that care. And so if we actually played out a scenario where, let's just say it's mom, she's in the
Yes.
hospital, family's given a 3-day notice that we're getting dismissed.
Hmm.
The dismissal nurse is going to go through step by step, kind of here's the kind of plan of care, here's some services that you're going to need, things of that nature. Most families that I've spent time working with have no idea where to start. They may be given some direction. They don't know what kind of questions to ask. They
Hmm.
really don't know what that means. They just know in 3 days, they better have a plan.
That's right. That's right, Angie. And you know, I thought I knew when I was working with a carrier and talking about long-term care insurance and selling long-term care insurance, right? I thought I knew how important planning was. And I talked about it all the time, right? Even if
Mm-hmm.
you don't buy insurance, you need a plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't tell you how unprepared most families are. And I'm seeing it firsthand now that you're right. Mom is in the hospital. Maybe she's had a fall or has a chronic illness in the hospital, and the family gets a call, and maybe they get a couple hours or a couple of days, and say, the hospital says mom is being discharged, and you need to come pick mom up and take her home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they give you a couple of sheets of paper, and one of those sheets is a referral of a couple of community resources that you can contact for help.
Mm-hmm.
But most families are in crisis mode, right? That
Mm-hmm.
they, a son or daughter probably have full-time jobs. They have kids of their own. They don't have the time or ability to care for mom full-time, right? And so they're looking for resources. They don't know who to call. They don't know who to trust, right? There's a lot of concern about bringing somebody into your mom's home to provide care or provide advice, and you don't know who to trust, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so families are in this crisis mode, and so they get home, and the first question is, what do we do? Who do we call? And can we afford it? And so, we understand that moment, and the level of crisis there is. And so typically what we do is free of charge. Our local agencies will meet with families, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about coordinating care. And coordinating care is really a big umbrella of
Mm-hmm.
understanding what all of the needs are. What are mom's needs? What are the family's needs? What level of care is needed? What level of medical care and intervention is needed? And then also the second component is financial resource coordination. What does mom have at her disposal to be able to afford levels of support? And what other things can we tap into? Can we tap into government resources? Can we tap into other financial resources? Or was a member of the household part of the armed services? Are there VA resources we can tap into? So the care coordination is a broad umbrella of really helping the family in this moment of crisis put together a valuable plan that gives them a meaningful step forward.
Holy cow, John. That is absolutely amazing because families can't take that broad of a view of what's going on when they're
Mm,
looking through this itty bitty little, telescope lens of really how things are going to happen. So that is incredible to open up the eyes. Plus, I wanted to go down a path for just a moment. I've even done some podcasts on this about the denial of long-term care claims with long-term care insurance
mm,
present. And really what is the crux of those denials? I mean,
yes,
I will have some pessimists that will say, well, it's because the insurance company doesn't want to pay that claim. They're just trying to find ways to not pay the claim. And then we
sure.
have others where we're saying, look, there's just a very serious disconnect between an insurance company and the verbiage that they're trying to state versus
Mhm.
the family that what, maybe the son or the daughter or even the husband or, the caregiver that's with that person doesn't understand the insurance language, let alone to be able to have an intelligent conversation. And so claims are being denied. And we're
Yes.
finding it's because there's not medical documentation does not match
Mhm.
what that patient actually needs. I'm kind of curious, do you see that?
We do, yeah, and so, when Amada started in '97. Tafa Jefferson was the founder of Amada Senior Care, and very early on, within a year or two of starting, he had his first long-term care insurance claim, and he very quickly started to understand what long-term care insurance was without being familiar with it, right? And so he decided that as he was building Amada Senior Care, that Amada would specialize in long-term care insurance as a way to really set ourselves apart from maybe other home care providers in the industry. And
Sure.
I think every business chooses where they focus and where their expertise is. But as I had a conversation with Tafa and joined Amada, it was for this reason that they have become experts in long-term care insurance and particularly long-term care insurance claims, right? And because we recognize how valuable it is to help a family who has had this policy, they've been paying on this policy for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, right? And now they're depending on this resource
Yeah.
uh, to provide care so that mom or dad can stay home. And so being effective at helping that individual or that loved one get the benefits that they've been promised is a huge resource. And so that is something that we've kind of carved out as our niche as a home care provider. But we partner with long-term care insurance companies, and they're good partners of ours. And from the insurance carrier perspective, right? They want to have, they're selling long-term care insurance, and they value their reputation. And so it benefits them for folks that, need care and qualify for those claims to be paid, right? It benefits the insurance carrier and their reputation for the right
Absolutely.
folks to have their claims approved. But the challenge is, just as we explained, that families are in this crisis mode, right? They're trying to figure out the whole care situation, and that's challenging enough to get that family to understand all the pieces and components that they need to put together to deliver a package to the insurance company that's going to be approved is a challenge. And I think we all recognize that there's components that they need to gather in terms of a
Hmm.
plan of care, a qualified plan of care. They need to understand the language of the policy, right? They need to understand what medical documents that
Hmm.
the physicians need to submit. And they need to understand what the policy really pays
Right.
for, right? That it doesn't pay for someone to come in the house to cook meals, right?
Right.
Even though that's what a lot of our seniors need, that's not what the policy pays for. And so we can,
Right.
come into the home, and what we typically do is come into the home, Angie, and bring in one of our registered nurses, and we evaluate that senior right on the spot, and we say, hey, they're deficient in these ADLs. We're going to design a plan of care and help you navigate this claims process. And to the carrier is getting a package from us with a plan of care already created, one from a registered nurse that helps expedite that claims process. I can tell you, we were just a couple of weeks ago working with an insurance carrier, and I won't mention their name, but working with an insurance carrier and a carrier that really believes in paying benefits to seniors that need it, right? And their policyholders. And This was a client that we were not providing her care, but she was in a local assisted living facility.
Mm.
And that assisted living facility was not familiar with long-term care insurance at all.
Oh,
And so
wow.
they kept submitting claim forms and invoices to the insurance company, and they were getting denied. And it was only because the language that they were putting inside their invoices and the claim documents just was not the same language. It was medical language, but it was not
Hmm.
insurance language, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so they didn't understand the disconnect. And so we were able to come alongside the assisted living facility, and work with that senior, and work with the insurance company. I had the claims manager on the phone, and she said, this is what we need to get this claim approved. I know that she's approvable. We just need this to get it approved, right? And so then we worked with that assisted living facility, and we were able to get the claim approved. So the disconnect, is that the insurance company needs something, the client needs the benefit, but they both need support bridging the gap and getting right documentation to make that a seamless and easy process.
And I tell you, I mean, how huge is that to a family? Because if that would have went untouched,
Mm,
you would see, because people have, I mean, you never really hear the great stories about the long-term care experience that families have. It's always the nightmare. It's the rate increase. It's they didn't pay the claim. They canceled my mom's coverage right when she needed it, right?
that's right.
How many of these have fallen to the floor? And these carriers are having, bloody noses because they're just, their names are smeared everywhere, all because of sometimes simply just a word inside of the
Mhm.
documentation. It's insane to me,
Yes.
which John, I mean, again, why I could not be more thrilled to partner with Amada to give people the resource to go out there and reach out to you guys for this kind of assistance, because it is huge. It is absolutely, it'll make or break the family, literally.
Yeah, and Angie, I have to tell you, we have situations all the time where we step in with a family, and they call us, and the claim's been denied, and they've appealed a couple of times, and it keeps getting denied, and they can't understand what the problem is. And we've gotten into the situation. The agent reached out to us, and the family's hiring a lawyer, and their next step is, hey, we
Yep.
think we're going to sue the insurance company. Well, that's not good for anybody, and
Nope.
so we've been able to step in and say, no, you don't need an attorney. You don't need to sue the insurance company. Let us help you,
Yeah.
right? Let us help you diagnose what the issue is and see if we can get this claim turned on.
Yeah.
And in many cases, we've been successful.
John, something tells me that assistance from a Modicare might be a little bit less than an attorney's fees.
I think so. I think so.
You made a comment that I think is worthy to elaborate on.
Hmm,
When we think about somebody needing assistance,
hmm,
whether it's skilled or non-skilled, but the family always recognizes when that's there, or they've done what they can do and they need some help. I just took a phone call like that. The son called. My wife's been providing care for my mom. It's
hmm.
become more and we need help. We
Yes.
think we're ready to get that insurance policy in place. John, what if I threw out the notion that what if it's a planning conversation? That doesn't mean it's all in insurance, right? Insurance doesn't have to be the sole solution or the solution at all for some people. I don't tell everybody that buying long-term care insurance or some version of it is the only way to solve this problem, because that's not true.
Right.
Uh, but what if the family, now granted, when you're planning for this, you have no idea what's going to create the circumstance that you need care. We
Hmm.
don't know that. But
Yes.
what we can do is what if we started thinking about, okay, long-term care insurance, whether it's a life long-term care, it's a hybrid, it's a, whatever, traditional, it's an income vehicle. It's going to generate an income stream to pay for care when needed upon
That's right.
certain triggers.
Hmm.
But everybody says, even the moment you are in the hospital for a simple surgery or to have a baby, or it doesn't matter what's the first question they ask when they come out of anesthesia? When am I going home?
That's right. That's right.
Everybody wants to go home. We all want to age in place. Matter of fact, I had an uncle that said, take me home. I want to die at home.
Yes.
Um, so if we think about it in terms of that,
Mm-hmm.
what if you had home health care and then a policy that would pay to supplement, right? Because
Hmm.
it's not that Medicare won't pay for some home health care.
Yes.
If we
Yeah.
think about the whole planning event, and we knew we had a resource in Amada and a
Mhm.
resource of income out of a policy, between all of that together, we could come up with a really good plan of care so that
Mhm.
when the family hits crisis mode, somebody can flip the switch and they've got someone to talk to that can
Yes.
say, okay, Yep, you've done a good job putting some pieces together. Let's round out that plan.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, Angie. It is all about the plan, right? And it really is, it requires a network of professionals really to be engaged with that family. I can't tell you the number of
Mhm.
families that we sit down with and mom or dad's will is not in place,
Yep,
right? They've talked about a trust, but they haven't set up the trust. They don't
yep,
have power of attorney or a
yep.
medical a power of attorney established. And so, it might be coordinating with a local elder law attorney that's in our network. And or they have no assets and the home is
Hmm.
the only asset. And so we need to coordinate with a specialist to talk about a reverse mortgage and
Hmm.
what kind of income that can create. And so there is this level of coordination, right? But you talked about being discharged from the hospital. So there are several things at play that are, I think, good to touch on. And one of those is that everybody wants to go home. But also with where Medicare is at currently, and everybody knows that Medicaid and Medicare are financially underwater,
Hmm.
and the government's looking at ways to cut spending in those programs. One of the ways they're cutting spending is what they call a SNF, a skilled nursing facility. So that's typically where seniors are sent after they're discharged from the hospital. They've been sent to a skilled nursing facility to rehab, right, before
Hmm.
being sent home.
Hmm.
During COVID and shortly before COVID, they started what they're calling a sniff to home diversion, where they're no longer sending folks to a skilled nursing facility. Now, on average, about 40% of seniors are getting sent directly home instead of to a skilled nursing facility. And so they're being sent home with a referral list of nurses and agencies that can send nurses to the home to help with rehab and put a plan in place. But they're being sent home with even less guidance, less
That's
advice,
right.
not having been through that facility. And so
Yep.
families need that coordination. They need care coordination. I'll give you a
Yes.
quick story. My first week on the job, I was doing some training at our home office in Orange County, California. And as part of that training, I was going out to see some of our families, and I was traveling with our agency owner that was doing care coordination with families that needed some support. And this particular family was a wife and husband. The husband was on hospice, and so the hospice nurse was going to the home a couple of hours a day as the husband was close to the end of life, right? But the wife wasn't able to provide any care for her husband beyond what the hospice nurse was doing. And so the
Wow.
hospice nurse, of course, was coming to the house and had the IV bag set up in the
Yep.
room and was providing medical care, but nobody was bathing her husband and nobody was moving him
Mm.
on the bed. And so she asked us to come out to provide a caregiver to provide a couple of hours of care on top of what the hospice nurse was doing. Because Medicare, of course, is only going to reimburse so many hours for that hospice nurse. And so, our conversation that day was let's coordinate care between the hospice nurse and Medicare and give you a couple of additional hours of a caregiver that will care for your husband. We'll bathe him, we'll turn him in the bed and make sure he's comfortable. Right. And it just so happened that while we were there, the husband passed away.
Mm.
And so we happened to be consulting with his wife, and it was a moment where she crawled into the bed with him and with
Hmm.
him when he passed. And her kids were not present; they weren't local, and so we were able to sit and grieve with her, and it happened to be a really good thing that we were there in that moment,
Oh my goodness, yes.
to be present with this new widow as her husband passed and spend some time with her afterward to make sure she was okay, and had a plan moving forward. So care coordination is just an understanding of all the complexity that happens as we're transitioning, and aging and then transitioning to the next life, right? And so there are so many components, and I could share additional stories, but I think that kind of paints a picture of what care coordination looks
Hmm.
like in real time.
Yeah, and and I don't want to get too emotional because I did get a little teary-eyed as you were talking about that because all I could think about was how comforted she had to have felt, one, knowing that her husband was able to pass with the dignity that she knew he deserved to have.
Hmm.
I mean, you
Yeah.
don't think about stuff like that, but she was concerned about him having a bath and being clean
Mhm.
and about him being comfortable.
That's right.
Even though hospice is going to make sure that he's not in pain, she knew that there still needed to be some stuff done. And that had to have given her so much comfort in his last moments that she could know that she did everything she possibly could to make him as comfortable as possible and with the
Yeah,
dignity he deserved. I mean,
that's right.
that is so amazing for families. And none of us can play out what that's going to look like for us, but
Mhm.
the vast majority of Americans are not even talking about this. I mean, I don't know. Do we all really think that we're just going to poof, not be here and not have that end of life? You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
none
Yeah.
of us are really that. There's not a whole lot of people that are that lucky. I mean, to go so easily. There's usually a sickness that gets us to that point, and along that illness and that sickness is, what does that do to the families? And so, how amazing to me that Amada doesn't just look at one snapshot in time. It's actually all encompassing of what that family needs and how you can possibly go out and grab as many resources to aid that family in their time of need. I mean, that is just truly amazing to me.
Yeah, yeah, Angie, and it really is. The founder of the company, he says that Amada is his business and his ministry, right? Because it is serving those of
Absolutely.
us that are the most vulnerable as we age and need it.
Hmm.
You go from being self-sufficient as an adult
Yep.
to needing the support and resources and care of others. And so it is a vulnerable thing. And it's worth mentioning, and I get asked this often, okay, so you provide care, but you offer this care coordination and senior advocacy services for free. How do you get paid, right? Because of course we are a business, and so it's
Mhm.
meaningful to provide and help folks have this plan and make sure that whatever resources they have, we have a plan in place that's going to last as long as possible, because that's a big part of it, right? We recognize that folks have limited resources, and so we want them to last as long as possible. And so we do offer that care coordination and advocacy for free. And we really believe that if we can show up and be there for the family, that there isn't a better referral opportunity for us, right? That family, should they need care, that they're going to choose Amada to come in and provide those caregiving services, or as there are others in their network that may need a in-home caregiver, that they're going to recommend Amada. And so, we don't charge for our services, but we just believe that if you do the right thing for seniors and you show up and you're present and help folks put together this plan and coordinate with other professionals, right? That it is going to come back to us in the form
Mhm.
of opportunities and referrals. And so that's really where our value proposition is. We're going to show up, and if we do the right thing and help folks, then our business is going to grow.
And you know what? Out of a true servant's heart, I believe that is coming true. You guys have been a business since 1997. You're
That's
doing
right.
something right.
That's right. And growing like crazy.
Well, it might have
Excited.
something to do with our population aging. That could certainly be a part of that.
Yeah, yeah. They say that we need something like 60 million caregivers over the next decade, as all of us are aging and getting to this point where we may need some help, right? So there's room for growth, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, and not to, I mean, this has probably got to be my longest podcast ever, but in correlation to needing caregivers, Ramona Neal actually wrote an article about how the caregiver crisis is actually threatening the LTC insurers, which I
Mm.
find interesting as well. So, John, I hope your company continues to grow. flourish, and you guys have all the help you are ever going to need to help as many Americans as possible, because what you guys are doing is absolutely amazing and nothing short of fantastic for those families.
Well, thank you, Angie. I appreciate it. And you mentioned Ramona's article. It's so interesting. It's a great article, and it hits on the idea that long-term care insurance, for it to be successful, right? Folks
Hmm.
that have long-term care insurance policies have to be able to find caregivers
Yep.
to be able to claim their benefit, right? There have to be caregivers available, and if there are not caregivers and there's a shortage, that's going to drive up care costs, and
Yep.
it's only going to maximize the
Yep.
problem we have with claims against carriers today. So, this certainly is probably a recommendation for folks to get into the caregiving as a profession. But we do need caregivers in the profession. We need
We
folks
do.
that are passionate about providing care for seniors and being involved in this stage of life for so many folks that are aging today. So no, it was an honor to join you, Angie, and thank you so much. I could talk for quite a bit more, but I'll stop here. I know we've gone a little bit long.
I love it. John, I can't thank you enough for being my final guest of 2023. And I think this was very insightful. I want to encourage all of you to go out to my long-term care toolbox on producersxl.com and just look at the information inside of our co-branded page that we have out there with Amada. It's really impressive. And you never know, just knowing that you have that resource and giving the name of Amada Senior Care to a family in need, how much that could actually change the outlook, not only financially, but emotionally for those folks. So I want to take just the wrap up here and say Merry Christmas. I know we're one day past, but Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. Be safe, be prosperous. And I am absolutely looking forward to continuing wonderful guests, insightful guests like John in 2024. So thank you all very much and have a wonderful